Could we start with like, what did the early days of Throwbacks Northwest look like, or maybe some of the history behind the store?
Sure.
In general.
Sure. So the early days of Throwbacks was like 2008. There wasn't really any similar shops in the area. You know what I mean? When you think about like similar shops that were like in New York, Canada, other areas. So it's kind of the first of its kind of the niche. You know, there's a lot of vintage shops, but none that was specifically doing, I would say, sports and that was like hip hop inspired. So I feel like Throwbacks was one of the first in Washington. You feel me?
What made now the right time for the second location, and why this neighborhood?
The opportunity came up to come down to Pioneer Square, and thankfully, you know, it was a perfect opportunity. I've been wanting to do like a vendor situation for a long time. I kind of dabbled in it back in like 2020 with a spot in Tacoma, a smaller spot, and had an idea to do like a vendor situation. And kind of tried it out in a smaller space. Long story short, this opportunity came up, and you know, I'd always liked this area, and being that it's like 2 blocks from Lumen Field, and that FIFA's literally coming in the next 2 months, it was perfect timing. If I was going to strike on anything like this, I feel like it was absolute perfect timing, and I feel like timing is a big part of everything I do and what I've been doing.
How important is preserving local culture through spaces like this, whether in Seattle or just in the bigger picture in general?
For sure. I think preserving local culture is vital to places like Seattle and cities around the world, San Francisco, LA, New York. It's just, there's many pioneers and many people before us, so I feel like it's important to honor those people and pay homage to the people who actually made this a possibility. And you know, a lot of people, like you see at Capitol Hill, there's a lot of wall pieces, and people will come in and they're not for sale because those are pieces that are just a part of the collection. It's like a museum of, you know, hip hop, what we do, art, stuff that we want to last forever, and that can be handed down to, you know, my son and others that are into what we do. So I say, I mean, as I get older, the importance of preserving the culture and everything that's like laid the path, whether it's music or actual clothing artifacts, to me is vital.
Do you feel like it definitely connects with the culture and gets people more, you know, connected to you guys being in Seattle, and then getting to walk in here and find their Mariners gear and their Seahawks gear and their Sonics gear? Like,
yeah, it brings up a lot of memories, whether it's like Too Short t-shirt or if it's a Seahawks jersey that a guy wore to a game in '76 and his dad took him, and they got that memory that, you know, they won't forget. So it's like, you know, people come into the shop and are like, man, I wish I held on to this. I wish I held on to that. That's like, literally every day is like, that comes up, man. You're like, damn, man, I wish. It just sparks so much memories, nostalgia, history, to where, you know, it always sparks stories. You know what I mean? There's stories in every piece. There's stories in every garment. There's stories, you know, in all the stuff that surrounds us, you know what I mean? And again, another thing that I feel is important is to preserve those stories, and keeping those pieces on the wall, like art, is a way to preserve those pieces. And then, you know, you got young people, it's also kind of like a learning experience. People may not know, you know, a young kid comes in and may not know who this person was on the wall, and they ask questions. So it's a way to teach people, you know what I mean? Also, it's educational as well as preserving the art. There's a lot of different parts to it. And it's dope to see. I love talking to people from around the world. We get people from around the world coming into the shop, and they trip. Like, some people, like, this is a museum. They're like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I just love having those conversations with people and to see how it impacts people. You know what I mean? When they come through.
Yeah, it's definitely that. I'm glad you said that because that's kind of what it feels like in Capitol Hill location, and in this one. Just yeah, it feels like a museum. Is there any like grail pieces that you're chasing? And like, what's like some of the craziest items that you've seen in your? I mean, I'm sure you come across some of the coolest shit. Is there anything that like sticks out that's just like major for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different situations or come ups, you know what I mean, that mostly that stand out. It's like there used to be more come ups, so now it's like it's a little bit more rare. Like I tell people, like people ask me like where do you get all this, where do you find all this stuff? But there's so many people in the game now. I feel like I really got to be like a private investigator for vintage. So I've been working on leads for a long time, but it's like more than ever I work on leads to get stuff from places that people don't go. So as far as like, a batch of MCM hats that were just sitting in Value Village one day, like I had to like wipe my eyes because I thought it was a mirage, when I seen them lined up, or like seeing a Polo Snow Beach on the rack at Value Village. And I've came up on a couple of those. Those are the type of things that come to mind, but then it's also just those situations where you go into a place and you ask if there's any more in the back, and as a matter of fact, we do, and let's go upstairs, or actually we got a warehouse in the middle of nowhere if you want to come check it out. And so we end up going out there and stacking up, as much as we can. I just got a lead on some hats recently. So as far as like recent grails, I got a bunch of like dead stock new era hats that I just got in the last week that it's always like super exciting. I get a rush from the hunt. You know what I mean? I love the game. I love the hunt. So when those things, I had to move on these hats recently, and that's just always fun and exciting. I don't get out as much as I used to. I used to fill up carts from Olympia to Bellingham, and people are bringing stuff in because we've been doing it for a long time, and that's kind of the advantage of having a shop for 18 years is people do find out about us, know about us, people call. But I'm always excited, man, to find dope shit, to answer more of your questions.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, polo, the vintage polo pieces has always been a love, has always been a passion. I guess I'm less like of a hoarder than when I started, man. People would come to the counter with stuff when I was starting off, and I was like, you sure you want that? But I feel like I try not to hold on to stuff as much now. I'm more willing to let it go to somebody who appreciates it.
Yeah, it's got to be hard to. I guess I never thought about that from like someone like yours perspective. Like, it's got to be hard to let some shit go because it's just so cool and you appreciate it so much.
Yeah. No, it is. Like I said, I was pretty like I sold shit that like I regretted at times, but like I said, like it's a business at the same time, so it's like you can't hold on to everything, man.
What is something that people maybe romanticize about the vintage store business versus like how hard it is actually behind the scenes?
For sure.
I
think as far as what people romanticize about vintage and how easy it is just you go to the bins and find some stuff and you're in business. There's different levels to the game like anything else, but as far as like having a brick and mortar, it's just a lot more, you know what I mean, than just having a good eye and finding, dope shit, you know what I mean? Like I would recommend an accountant, for example, or just making sure your books is right. People don't, tax is important. So just making sure business is in order, because, shit will catch up with you if you don't focus on crossing your T's, you know what I mean, with some of the essential aspects. But, man, I would say like me coming up, like I always like try to learn from people that I thought was dope. Success leaves clues, so follow people who are successful, you know what I mean? That's what I always like to tell young people. If you're into something, you know what I mean, study a person who's into that. You could learn a lot of game, and also don't think that game comes from anywhere specific. Sometimes people only want to get game from somebody who has 1 million followers. Somebody who's not on Instagram may have just as much game. So be aware that the game is everywhere.
What's next for Throwbacks Northwest?
So I think, second location was I've been wanting to do for a minute. We got that. Focusing on the brand awareness. We got a lot of up and coming drops. We've been pretty consistent on the drops the last couple of years. I think the next focus is even taking that to another level, and then, ultimately having our brand in different places, maybe outside of Throwbacks Northwest, maybe be able to find it in other cities. Who knows, maybe there's a Throwbacks in another state. I mean, that's been talked about as well. I don't want to say too much about that, but
sure.
Opportunities come up, and I love to move on them, but I'm also being more picky and calculated at what opportunities to move on. We do a lot of events outside of just the vintage shops too. So I would say just stay tuned, But yeah, I'm gonna say the next thing is, we got a lot of branded merch in the works right now, kind of mocked up. So you can find me at Throwbacks NW on Instagram. We're in Capitol Hill on 11th and East Pike. We just moved in 2 blocks from Lumen Field, down here in the heart of Pioneer Square. This is Throwbacks Northwest Stadium Collective at 414 2nd Avenue South. Like I said, just 2 blocks from Lumen. The Instagram for here is Throwbacks Northwest Stadium Collective. Follow us to learn what's new, see what events we got going. Yeah, tap in, y'all. Much love. Thank you to Drip Daily for tapping in with Throwbacks Northwest. Much love.